Hey there, today I will be filling out some report cards for the first 4 affiliations in the game. My name is Nate, and welcome to the Gamers Guild. Alright, before I start handing out grades like a grade school teacher, I want to remind everyone that thanks to the Guild's new sponsor, Tritex Games, I'm doing a monthly giveaway for Marvel Crisis Protocol. You can enter by being subscribed to the channel and then by leaving a comment on each video that releases in a month. So each comment will be 1 entry for that month. So for example, in the month of February, there will be 4 MCP videos, so 4 potential points of entry. As well, Tritex is offering an additional 5% off of their Marvel Crisis Protocol products with the code TRITEXGGCP5 at checkout, which is kind of insane because if you pre-order with them, you're already getting 20% off of retail, so this would be 25% off your pre-ordered items. The giveaway will always be of a model coming out the following month. So if this contest was going on in January, it would have been for some of the Inhumans. And since there isn't any official confirmation as to what is or is not releasing next month, I don't want to get anyone's expectations up like I have done myself in history class, waiting to see what I got on the test. And with that, let's talk about the syllabus I will be grading all of the affiliations by. The categories I want to cover are the leadership ability on its own, the tactic cards for the affiliation, how deep the affiliation's roster is, and how well the team plays with each other and with other characters outside of the affiliation. A couple of things worth mentioning here. The leadership ability and team tactic cards grade are going to be graded in a vacuum to see just how good they can stand on their own. Then they will be making a large impact on the synergy category of both unaffiliated and affiliated sections. For example, let's start with one of my favorite affiliations in the game, the Avengers. Captain America's leadership ability is an extremely powerful one that can certainly be built around. A day unlike any other allows every allied character to get 1 power discount on the first superpower they use each turn. Unfortunately, it can only reduce the cost down to 1, and it doesn't work with any superpowers that cost X. Now, this can become insane for any characters who have reactive abilities like Captain America himself, who then can use a reactive ability on each of your opponent's turns. This ability is just a straight up value engine that has a pretty high upside, and for the majority of characters, at worst, it is a 1 free power for them to use an active superpower during their turn, which will still net them 3 to 4 power a game. So I'll give it an A-. Now, what about their tactic cards? Well, the Avengers have a lot of both affiliated tactic cards and duo cards that can be played within the affiliation. Avengers Assemble, Second Wind, and Anger Management are the affiliated ones, alongside cards like Ricochet Blast and Thunder Wave, which might as well be, that let Cap team up with one of his fellow Avengers for a 1-use super attack. Now, while several of these cards are fun and thematic, only Second Wind and Avengers Assemble have effects that are decent and flexible. But at this point, if I'm playing an Avengers list, I only have Avengers Assemble in my 8, and it doesn't even always hit the table. So the Avengers tactic card selection for me gets a B-. But for their affiliation depth, well, they get an A+. I mean, how could they not? Not only do they have the most characters by name in their affiliation, but they also have a character at every threat value from 2 to 6. And with their wide selection, you can optimize a team with different playstyles pretty easily. One of my earlier favorite lists was Avengers Throws, with Thor, Captain Marvel, Vision, and Captain America, since they all have a throw that guaranteed damage and some nice board control elements. But there is also the option to go wide with several 3-threat characters, and so on. Unfortunately though, not too many of this wide roster are really able to take advantage of Cap's leadership ability. Vision and Hawkeye are both great pieces as they have reactive and active powers to take advantage of the discount, but they are in the minority. Ant-Man literally has no powers that the discount can work with, and many other Avengers only have an active power that only gets the discount during their activation, which is good, but it doesn't scratch what Captain America's leadership ability is capable of. And so if we are playing with minimal Avengers, then there isn't really much reason to be leaning on all of the Avenger tactic cards either. So with all of that in mind, I'm leaving the Avengers with a B for their affiliated synergies. Now, outside of the affiliation, there are so many characters that want to take advantage of Cap's leadership ability almost every single turn that they can, so it's hard not to give the unaffiliated synergies a solid A. Venom, Thanos, Baron Zemo, Loki, and even Ebony Maw can perform just as well, if not better, alongside Cap than how they perform in their home affiliation. This A is earned more so because of how powerful this affiliation can be with the right characters, rather than its universal appeal. So total grade for the Avengers ends up being a B+. Eventually, it is likely the Avengers will fill out their roster with more characters that have high levels of synergy we want and bring some more relevant tactic cards to the table. Not to mention, if we ever get a second leadership ability, who knows what this affiliation is going to be capable of, but until then, B+. On the opposite side of the core set, we have the Cabal. Red Skull's leadership ability is extremely potent. It says each time an allied character damages an enemy character with an attack, after the attack is resolved, the attacking character gains 1 power. This ability makes every attack a potential builder, and then it just goes and makes beam and area attacks insane because they resolve as multiple miniature attacks. If you have a character that wants to be dealing damage, it's hard to say that they wouldn't do well in Cabal, and even for the control characters, outside of the ones that are very focused on using their superpowers only, Skull's leadership is one that almost everyone in the game wouldn't mind benefiting from. And if that isn't A+ material, I don't know what is. Now, as far as tactic cards, the Cabal only has 2. Dark Reign, which allows rerolls for Cabal attackers on a single character, and Cosmic Invigoration, which at the cost of some potential damage, can remove an activation token, letting a character get a full extra activation in the same round. For the damage-focused Cabal, neither of these are terrible options. But for Dark Reign to really be useful, you need a target that's difficult to bring down, and to have several Cabal-affiliated characters near that target. So not a lot of flexibility in that card. On the other hand, Cosmic Invigoration is extremely flexible because it is one of the few affiliated tactic cards, if not the only affiliated tactic card, that can be played by a character who isn't part of the affiliation. As well, it's a pretty powerful card just in general, but it does have a cost and sometimes even a risk. In a game, playing this on a character who's already taken some damage on them could mean that on a bad dice roll, you daze or even KO the character that wanted that second activation, which brings me to an overall grade of A-. Cosmic Invigoration is one that is the only one that's really likely to be brought, and while it's still very flexible, the chance of backfire is enough to keep it at an A- for me. Now, the roster depth, like the Avengers, is huge. Unfortunately, despite the large roster, the Cabal are still missing a 2-threat and a 6-threat character from their options. So even with multiple playstyles and a large roster, I have to leave the Cabal's roster depth at an A. As far as affiliated synergies and unaffiliated synergies are really about the same. Everyone will appreciate Red Skull's leadership ability equally, and their main tactic card can be played on people outside of the affiliation as well as those in the affiliation, so both of their synergy categories get a solid A, leaving the Cabal with an A. There really just isn't any character I can think of that wouldn't benefit from being in Cabal. Maybe like Lockjaw or Wong, since they don't have an attack that often, but even then Lockjaw can double activate, getting the extra power from Who is a Good Boy after Cosmic Invigoration. So all in all, this rounds out the Cabal to be a solid A for their report card. Moving on to Wakanda, we get to see how a smaller affiliation can still be powerful because of that smaller size. For starters, we have their leadership ability. King of Wakanda lets an allied character reroll 1 attack, defense, or dodge dice after the initial roll for 1 power. This is a solid power that can help push through a final bit of damage, or leave a character standing after an otherwise lethal attack. The cost is small if the result ends up being how you want it to be, but if you whiff on that reroll, then it can feel pretty bad because you spent a power on nothing. So all in all, I'll give the ability an A- because it's potentially good for everyone, but there's also a lot of characters that are already hungry for power and won't always be able to use this ability frequently, like some other characters who do have access to easy ways to build up their power base. And also because of those whiffs, they can be absolutely brutal on the table when you really need that one result. Now, I'll also fully admit here that I might be bringing a bit of salt to the table with this leadership ability, so maybe it deserves the A. But I'll personally stick to the A- for now. In terms of tactic cards, Wakanda has some of the best. Wakanda Forever lets each Wakandan character pay 1 power for one of their attacks that costs 0. This is Storm maybe shocking someone, 2 guaranteed pushes with Shuri and Panther, and it can let Killmonger go absolutely nuts with focus on the kill. Vibranium Shielding is also really good with the straight damage reduction, and since Shuri is capable of banking lots of power easily, it can be played well on objectives with an E or C secure, but otherwise your team might be too spread out for it to be worthwhile. All of that said, Wakanda Forever is maybe the best affiliated team tactic card so far. So I'm going to give the Wakandans an A+ here. Where they may take a bit of a dip though is their affiliation depth. They currently only have 5 characters in Affiliation, but on the bright side, one of those is a 2-threat character and a really good one at that. If the Affiliation fills out, this can easily raise. For now though, I think I'm going to leave them at an A-. This leads me to commend how well this Affiliation can play within itself. Shuri providing rerolls and control elements, Black Panther being super tanky who can also dish out the damage if he really needs to, Okoye having bodyguard is also just a really nice piece to have on the board as well. And it's all tied up nicely with Wakanda Forever, rewarding you for each additional in-affiliation character you play. This is a prime example of an affiliation that plays well together and synergizes off of one another, and for those reasons, I have to give them an A+ here as well. As far as outside affiliation characters, you are in some ways going to be punished for each additional character you bring into a game because it's one less character that can play Wakanda Forever. As well, the leadership bonus is nice for characters who can easily obtain power, but for those who barely have enough to do what they want typically, it's often left alone until an extreme situation arises. So because probably less than 50% of the characters don't get a huge benefit from joining Wakanda, I have to give them a B here, leaving Wakanda at a stout A-. And now if we follow the release order, we have the Asgardians led by Thor, Prince of Asgard. His leadership ability allows you to either remove 1 damage or status condition at the beginning of each of your turns for 1 power, but each character can only use this ability once per turn. I don't have too much to really say here other than it's a really nice ability. Sure, healing 1 is nice, but removing a status condition without having to shake can really alter the course of a game. But if it's not doing that, it's still healing your characters, as long as you can remember it. Now with that, I'm going to give this a solid A because while you do have to pay for it, it's also a guaranteed effect that will let you move forward through a game smoothly. Oh, and then they have tactic cards that are, well, up for contention with Wakanda for best affiliated tactic cards. Odin's Blessing will reduce incoming damage from a single source to 1 for an Asgardian, no ifs, ands, or buts. It will just save a Thor with 6 health left from a crazy dice spike. This card is so good that people are often bringing a version that is unique to Wolverine and Sabretooth, even if only one of them is on the table. So being able to protect over half of your team in that same way is great. And now more recently, Asgard got their Rainbow Bridge working again, and it's a supercharged version of Avengers Assemble. Instead of costing 1 power, it costs 3. Instead of a short move, it's a range 3 place effect, which is a bit more than a medium move, and that also is going to ignore terrain. So while it's more costly, the added movement is well worth the cost, and breaking my rule about cards being looked at in a vacuum, we know everyone who can play this card gets 2 power a turn anyways. And so that kind of balances out the only downside about this card. So Asgard is going to get an A+ here because the effects are both super relevant and versatile in what they can be used for. Their affiliation depth has also recently got a boost with Enchantress and Angela, which has let the affiliation round out its playstyle options, but unfortunately it hasn't helped with Affiliation's tendency to lean toward the higher costed characters, with now 2 5-threat characters, 3 4s, and only 1 3-threat character. However, having 3 characters with a mystic attack and an overall decent spread of damage types, I'm going to give them a B+ here. And despite the lack of lower threat characters, Asgard does pretty well as an affiliation on its own because the team is pretty mobile, so its lower character count doesn't spell their own doom. So by having more control options with Loki and Enchantress, characters capable of massive damage with Thor and Valkyrie, and just an overall durable roster, Asgard can fend for itself really well. Stack on a leadership ability that can heal these characters and make them able to overcome status conditions so your 5-threat characters can bring to bear their full utility, plus tactic cards that reward you even more for playing in Affiliation. That's a really solid A for Affiliation synergies. But it's in part because of all of that, Asgard isn't super well suited for bringing in other characters. The leadership definitely gets the most bang per buck out of the high-threat characters that are durable, and since Asgard is already expensive, well, it just doesn't quite work out that well. There are a few durable 3-threat characters like Taskmaster who can benefit from the leadership more, but for the most part, hanging out with the gods isn't a perfect fit for most characters out there. So for their unaffiliated synergies, I'll give them a B, which leaves Asgard with a very solid A for their overall grade. So that wraps up my first series of grades, with plenty more to come. And overall, these first few affiliations have really been able to stand the test of time because of great leadership abilities, tactic cards, or even just the breath of fresh air given by new additions to these first 4 affiliations has definitely kept them above average. And looking ahead to the next 4 affiliations, I have to say their future doesn't look quite so bright. I am curious, do you think I'm being too generous with some of these grades? If so, let me know down in the comments below, and that'll also get you an entry into the current mystery giveaway thanks to Tritex Games. And while I am thanking people, I have to say thank you to the members of the Guild Hall who are supporting the channel and what I'm doing here. If you're interested in supporting the Guild further, please check out either the Patreon link or the link to Tritex Games website down in the description below. And don't forget to use that promo code for an extra 5% off, which saves you money and lets them know that I sent you that way. And it'll especially probably help with some of those upcoming mutants we have on the horizon. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me at one of the links down below. And thank you all for watching, and until next time, keep on gaming.